welcome back. My name's Gabby Giddy, and this week I'm going to talk about my experience in Malaysia and Singapore.
Baby shampoo, come and save me. I've been missing lady love.
So to begin, I flew from Krabi to Kuala Lumpur right after I finished up with my mom, so I didn't have any more time in Thailand. My time in Kuala Lumpur was very interesting. I was only there for a brief few days, but I really enjoyed my time. I stayed with two people from couchsurfing, and I got to learn a lot from them, and they had a lot of really great recommendations to pass along to me. It was a little bit different being in Kuala Lumpur during this time, so I was there at the end of February, and during this time, things were definitely slowing down. There's a lot less tourists around, and I believe this is all due to the coronavirus kind of setting in at this point. So a lot of the places I went to check out, such as Chinatown and things like that, were just ghost towns, and no one was really doing anything there, and it was really odd. Normally these markets are busy and people are hustling and bustling everywhere, and I was just one of the main people that was just walking along these strips, which I hadn't encountered yet in my previous cities in Asia. So some things that I really enjoyed while I was in Kuala Lumpur was the KLCC Park, right beside the Twin Towers that are there. Normally when I'm in big cities, I like to seek out the parks and just hang out and read and things like that. Being in Kuala Lumpur was no exception, and I really enjoyed doing this as well. I did find myself struggling a little bit while I was in this city because I didn't get a SIM card, so I was always trying to track down Wi-Fi, and my phone wasn't really working properly either at this time. So I downloaded an app called Maps.me, but again, the bus schedules really weren't up to date. So something that I really did like was the Batu caves, and this was just about an hour out of the city, so these are really interesting to check out. I didn't find I needed that much time there. I did give myself a full day, but I was back in the city later within a few hours and was exploring Kuala Lumpur after that. But I thought it was really great. It was really beautiful. Each step was just painted something different. There's monkeys running around, and it was just a really cool experience to check out there. Overall though, I found my time in Malaysia was quite short. I wish I could go back and check out the Cameron Highlands and everything else that Malaysia has to offer. However, I was on a strict timeline. From here, I ended up taking a night bus to Singapore. So this night bus experience was one of the worst experiences of my life. So to begin, as many people already know, I don't enjoy night buses. I'm not really sure who enjoys night buses, but I do them to save money, to save a day here or there. I mean, it doesn't really save time in my opinion because you just show up tired anyways. Both my couch surfers in Kuala Lumpur and Singapore said, take the night bus, it's great. And I was like, okay, I trust you guys. Two people have vouched for this. So I showed up to the station at, I think it was 11 p.m. My bus was at midnight. I just wanted to give myself buffer time because this was a really big bus terminal. So once I got myself situated at the terminal, I was just hanging out, things like that. So far, so good. And then I got onto the bus. Again, it was fine. The seats really reclined backwards. I was very comfortable. Everything was fine. Then, this is where things start to go downhill. We entered the Malaysian side of the border, so I had to get off of the bus with everybody else. So our bus driver just told us the number of our bus. I think it was like 791, and that's all he said. He's like, go find 791 on the other side. And I was like, okay, here we go. Another border crossing. And everybody was running and pushing everybody to the side, and it was very chaotic. I'd never experienced so many people just so aggressive and things like that. So once you got in here, it literally felt like you were cattle being ushered. There were so many people in this small combined space, and everybody was just pushing, and the line, you didn't even know where the end was, so I ended up just getting in line somewhere, and I think I probably butted many people, but I had nowhere else to go. And so at this point, my line starts going, and I'm getting towards the customs person, and they stamp me through, everything's fine, I'm out of the country, and in my mind, I didn't really realize that we still had the Singapore side. I thought that was kind of it, just the one border. Oh, but no, there was much, much more. So I found my bus, got on there, I was the first one on, feeling good. I was like, okay, we're good, we're gonna make it to the other side. Then the bus driver starts letting on so many people onto the bus. So many people that hadn't previously bought a ticket, they were just giving our bus driver cash, and they were just getting on the bus. And then he starts driving from our bus, starts chasing after it. So I yelled at the driver, I was like, stop, someone's coming, and he just keeps going. And I was like, oh man, this is going to happen to me on the next one. I was like, there's no doubt I am not missing this bus on the next side. Something is gonna happen. I'm just preparing myself. So we get to the Singapore side. He says, grab all your luggage. I was like, great. Have to grab all my luggage. He's gonna leave me. I just knew it. So here I am, got to the Singapore side, and this is where everything started to take a long time. So the Singapore side was much stricter. They were doing contact tracing at this point due to the coronavirus. They were scanning everybody so carefully. And at this point, I only had about 15 people ahead of me, which realistically shouldn't take that long at border controls. It should be, I honestly thought it would take 20 minutes. This process took me 3 hours. I was literally in the Singapore lineup for 3 hours. I was the only backpacker. I was traveling by myself. Everybody else was crossing the border for work, so they had their coworkers or for school or things like that. Nobody else was backpacking. I was clearly the only one at this point, and this has not happened to me yet on my Vietnam-Cambodia crossing or my Cambodia-Thailand crossing. So this is kind of uncharted territory for me because I was literally the only tourist. So finally, 2 hours go by, me standing there with my backpack on, just waiting. I get to the border control and I hand them my passport and everything. They start drilling me, where was I, where am I going? Then they asked for my couchsurfer's address, and apparently I didn't press hard enough with my pen. It may have looked like a 3 instead of an 8. He's like, why was this not correct? I don't know where this is in Singapore, and really started drilling me. And I said, okay, I showed him the address, everything like that. Then, never happened before, I gave him my passport, but then he asked for my driver's license or another piece of government issued ID. So I gave that to him, and he's really analyzing me. He's looking through my passport for any Chinese visas. He's looking at my backpack because my backpack has patches all over it, so I think he was looking for that as well. And then he looked on the fugitive list. He literally, I could see where he was watching, and there was all the wanted people, and he was comparing both my passport and my driver's license to all the wanted people. And finally he gave it back and let me go through. When I finally got through, I was kind of running down the stairs, and I threw my phone down the entire stairs, and it just slid the entire way down. I was like, this is great. This is all happening at like 5:30 in the morning. I had no sleep on the bus and things are just going well. Finally, I get to where all the buses are and I start looking for my bus and I don't see it anywhere. So I asked one of the bus drivers, I showed them my ticket, I was like, do you know where this bus is? And he just laughs in my face. He's like, ha! Good luck, like, they're gone. And I was like, okay, how do I get to downtown Singapore? And they were having a field day with me. They were laughing at me, poking fun. They said, oh, you're from Canada? Because I have my patch. That's a rich country. You should have money. I said, I have no money. I just got through the border. Like, I haven't had a chance to take out money yet. And they're like, haha, good luck, and everything like that. Finally, one of the bus drivers came up to me and he said, you can just get on my bus. I'll take you to the city. So I was like, are you sure? He's like, yeah, no worries. Just get on. And I was like, okay, thank you. I got to the city, gave him all my leftover Malaysian money, and he was like, you don't have to do that. I was like, I'm not going back to Malaysia anytime soon, so it's fine, you take it. That was the worst border crossing. Singapore is also extremely hot, so I was sweating the entire time during this and just disgusting. And finally, I showed up to my couchsurfer's house and I was like, hello, I'm sorry, I'm like 3 hours late. Anyway, it was great. Singapore was great afterwards. I love this place so much. I can definitely see myself living there and being an expat, living the expat life there. I thought it was really great. Some of the things that I did were I went to Marina Bay, which everybody does, but I highly recommend it. It was really cool just walking around that area. I went to Sentosa, the island there, and again, it was empty. On this island, they have Universal Studios, which I just walked through to go to the beach, and it was empty, and I've never seen an amusement park empty before. Nothing was on. There's minimal people there. Barely anything was open. It was a really eerie time to be in Singapore. And then some of my friends gave me some recommendations of where to try food in Singapore, and I'd show up and they'd be closed. So even though this happened quite often, I loved it so much. Like, there was so much to do and see in Singapore, and easily could see myself moving there. So something interesting that I did do in Singapore was I was hanging out with my couch surfer. There was a couch surfing meetup that night, so this is the first time I'd ever been to one of those. So he took me to this couch surfing meetup, and I met other couch surfing hosts and surfers and just expats, so that was really neat. And I actually highly encourage going to these couch surfing meetups. Even if you don't do couch surfing, it's a good way to meet other travelers. If you guys want to hear more about couch surfing, let me know. I do it frequently. So on my way out of Singapore, so I was only there for about 3 days, I had a 5 a.m. flight from Singapore, and then had a layover in Bali, and then Bali to Perth, where I was meeting my friend Shannon. So I went at like 8 p.m. because there's so much to do in their airport. It's I think it is the best airport in the world. So I saw the Jewel, and it was really neat. Took lots of photos, hung out, wandered around and around, and finally I was like, okay, I'm gonna just check in so I can go sleep at my gate. So I go to check in and give my passport, my boarding pass, whatever, and they said, where's your visa? And I have had no visa issues up to this point. I've been very good at checking what countries need visas and things like that. And I said, what do you mean I don't need a visa for Australia? I'm like, we're Commonwealth, we don't need visas. And they just laughed in my face again. They said, no, you need a visa to board this flight. And I was like, are you joking? Like, it's literally, I think it was like midnight or 1 in the morning at this point. My flight was going out in like 4 hours. I really just wanted to sleep. So they pointed to a booth. They're like, you can go get a visa from that guy. And I was like, okay, whatever. Paid them. It was only $50. It wasn't that expensive, but I was just so unimpressed that I didn't know I needed a visa after I'd been so good with every other country. Overall, my time in Malaysia and Singapore was honestly pretty comical. It looked like I was a first-time traveler. So many things were going wrong for me. The border crossings were not great. Me trying to leave Singapore, also not great. But overall, I actually love them both so much, and I would really like to return there. Singapore made it on one of my lists of places to move in the world, so I definitely want to be back there. Thanks for tuning in this week, guys. I hope you enjoyed hearing about all my really great travel stories, and I hope you can learn from my mistakes. Don't take night buses, maybe just fly. Clearly, I have a bad experience with night buses overall, but yeah, it was a really fantastic experience, and I really enjoyed couch surfing in both of these places. So if you want any advice or want to hear more about couch surfing, comment below. I'd love to do a video on it. It's one of the best ways to travel, I think, and I've met so many cool and unique people all over the world. So thanks guys so much.